Hello, welcome beautiful souls. Welcome Jen, thanks for being here tonight. I am really excited to be doing this video and I have not been on YouTube pretty much all week. I've had a really busy family time, wonderful but busy family time, so it feels really good to be in front of all of you tonight, and I'm really excited to reveal my top 10 companion tarot books. After I signed off last week, I spent a couple of days creating a criteria, which I'm going to share with you tonight, and then we're going to go through it because I think it's a really, I don't know, maybe I'm a little too analytical, but it's a good way to have a criteria to base your judgment on. And there were a few surprises, and I'm going to share with you what those surprises were and how I came about with creating my top 5, my top 10. And it's not saying that this of course will change. It's a very fluid process, but I'm really glad that I did this. Also, because eventually I think I may write a tarot book, or I would love to work with a creator and do a tarot book, or possibly write, I don't know. Anyway, it was a good exercise for me. So let's get to that, and I will. Hello, Kyle. So let's get to that because I think that is just a really good place to start. Oh, before I do that, I just wanted to mention that in the community tab of my channel, I did put up 5 of the decks that I mentioned last week, and there were 58 votes, and 31% of the voters voted for the Marielle. And you may be surprised to learn the Marielle did not come in the top 10. And this is the top 10, of course, based on this criteria that I created that I'm going to share with you. Hello, Ange, welcome. And 3 of them came in the top 5, and 2 of them did not make the top 10. So that was fairly surprising to me. And anyway, it was a really good exercise. So I'm going to share my screen. And as you know, I'm a little bit of a rookie with this. So just bear with me. Okay. And I need to move it over here. So let me just move this around. Okay. And I want to hide the books so you can't see the scores. And I will speak to them in a few minutes and share them with you later. So here we go. I decided that there were 4 main categories I was going to score the books on. And if you look at the spreadsheet, card description, and this is out of 100, card descriptions is a score out of 50 points. And then if you look to the next subcategory, working with the deck, 15 points. And ease of use, 15 points. Navigability, if that's a word. And then 20 points for the credibility about the author. So credibility of the deck. And this is something I know I haven't always brought into consideration. So let's go through each of these categories one by one, and then you can share with me what you think. Is this a priority for you or not in determining whether a guidebook is helpful to you? I asked 2 questions of the card descriptions. One is that they actually describe the artwork, the artistic choices, and the symbols that are present on the cards. And I'm going to speak to each of these, not all of them, but I'm going to speak to some of them as we go through the decks. And then the second main point is that they interpret the meaning, especially nuances particular to the deck or the creator's unique interpretations. Many of the better guidebooks have some kind of a memorable quote or a really clever summary. And I added journal prompts as part of my checklist because some of the better guidebooks do have journal prompts, and either they are separate as a list or sometimes they are woven within the card descriptions. And I added this one. I really enjoy guidebooks that have an expanded court to card section, and they, especially if the creator has a different perspective than I do on court cards, if there are other layers that I'm not familiar with, or if they are attuned to a different system than I have learned with, I really appreciate an expanded court card section. So I did not necessarily say the top one is 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, or anything like that. I made some notes and I took into consideration all of these points in scoring each of the books out of 50. I'm just going to look with how are we doing here so far. And Jen says, description of artwork, super important to me. Generally the #1 determiner if you will actually read the guidebook. Yeah. So it's very, very helpful. The next one, working with the deck. So I wrote down here, tips on reading the cards. So sometimes creators or guidebook writers have amazing experience as a reader, and we can get some really good tips, asking questions and unique creator insights. Sample readings I added because several of you requested that, and you wanted to know which guidebooks actually had sample readings, and you wanted to know how the cards were interpreted by that particular writer, and unique spreads, so spreads that are particular to that deck. So that's a score out of 15. And then, but I can't scroll down too far, ease of use and navigability. So in that first one, I considered everything from paper to the binding to the size of the thumbnails, full images, use of fonts, color, and overall graphic design. Table of contents. Do you know that there's some guidebooks that actually don't have a table of contents? Or if they do have a table of contents, it's so bare bones, it makes it really, really difficult to work with the guidebook. So that is there. And some amazing guidebooks also have indexes, which is brilliant. Some of the better ones also have a key phrase summary or a keyword summary for all 78 of the cards. Books that use different languages or traditions, a glossary is a bonus. And I put down pronunciation key because some of the guidebooks who use some of the Druid language or Sanskrit or, you know, other languages, sometimes it's nice to know how to actually pronounce the words. I'm thinking of the Llewellyn Tarot, and I'm sure some of the others will come up. And that, of course, that's not relevant with all of the guidebooks. Oh, and I used the marigold. I included the marigold when I was doing this. And so, of course, the marigold has some words from an Indian language. And then the last section, I'll just go through this and I'll check back with the chat, is credibility about the deck. So the first one is how and why it was created. I find this absolutely fascinating. I love it when the deck creator shares their journey of its creation, the stops and the starts, the pauses, the redirection, the successes, the fails, the friendships that are made along the way, the things they learn, the new, you know, I absolutely love it. And when they expand on also the media and how in detail they put the media together and the different kinds of media that are used in the creation of the deck, I absolutely love to have that because it helps me to connect and relate very much to a deck. So I think that's, for me, that's really important. A bibliography. So in several of the books, it's I don't know if it's arrogant. I'm not sure what the right description is, but people say in their guidebooks, I've been reading tarot for 20, 30, 40 years, and they reference no books. They reference nobody. And I really appreciate it. I think it shows a sense of humility. I think it shows respect for sourcing and resourcing other materials. And so if a guidebook does not include a bibliography, does not include a bibliography, I did take off points. In some cases, just 3 points. In other cases, if I felt it was more, it took off more. Collage or curated decks, describe the source artwork. For some decks, this is more important than others, and I did not include any real curated decks. Like one of my favorites is Robin Cole's The Beautiful Rebellion. Something like the Oracle of Delphi, those kind of decks. We don't have any of these here, but there are a couple of collage decks. And one of the collage deck creators actually does credit the artwork and where the artwork came from. So I thought that was deserving of points. And then the last one is a biography. And sometimes the biography is woven in with the journey of the creation of the deck. And that's fine. It doesn't need to be a separate page at the back of the book or the front of the book, of both the artist as well as the guidebook writer. And if there is nothing, I find that really strange that it's not there. It is, I want to know. I want to know who the creator is. I want to know their journey with the tarot. And even if they have written 30 tarot guidebooks, their journey is evolving, and they didn't write all 30 of those books at the same point in their journey. So I really appreciate a biography either as a separate entry or as part of the journey of the evolution of the deck, of the creation of the deck. So those are all the things that I looked at for these. So I'm just going to check back with the chat and say hello to anyone I haven't seen. And let me know if you do have any questions or comments. Just make sure you, I'm going to open, because I'm in StreamYard, so I'm going to make sure I have, how do I get rid of that? Hello, Ange. I think I said hi to you. Sorry, I've got two windows open, and it's so much easier to read the chat in YouTube than it is in StreamYard. And Essence is here. Alrighty. So where are we going to go next? I'm going to go and share with you some of the results. And I don't know how we're going to do this, but I'm going to go here. And I want to talk about a few of the ones I showed last week. So the Osho Zen, the additional guidebook for the Osho Zen, which is a fantastic book because it has such a different interpretation than this one. Oh, I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to go back to because I'm going to show you books. I'm going to go back to my screen and stop sharing. Okay. So I showed you the expanded book for the Osho Zen. This is the one that comes with the deck. This one in the criteria actually scored a lot higher than the supplemental book because the supplemental book doesn't have any spreads. It doesn't have a lot of material. And so the supplemental book actually only got a score of 47, and this one got a score of 81, did not make the top 10. So I just wanted to mention that because I know myself and quite a few other people have recommended that supplemental book, but this is an excellent, excellent reference book. So in its completeness, as far as all of the criteria goes. There's a few other books that were mentioned last week in the video that I've got them on my desk here and I wanted to just comment. I don't know if Jonathan's here or here yet. He was asking about this book. So I know I talked about Shadowscapes, which also didn't make the top 10. And this is the supplemental book that has all of the expanded artwork. It's a lot like in the style of the Patrick Valenza's large Deviant Moon book with the journey of some of the cards. And the commentary is written completely by Stephanie Pui-Moon-Law. So I know that was mentioned. Oh, and I have a question for you. So last week, one of you talked about the Muse Tarot and the large guidebook for the Muse Tarot. So I want to know if that came with the indie version of the deck, or if that is the PDF that's on the website, because with the Muse Tarot, I only have the little white book. So let me know about that, if that was one of you that commented on that. And I think it was Ange or somebody was talking about WTF is tarot, and about I was raving and raving about the binding and how this is one of those books that stays open. And so I just wanted to let you know that on the back of the book, down here, right here. Okay, I think I am buffering, which is not good. Just a second, guys. I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi. Make sure I just am on stream. Hold on. Hopefully that will be better. Okay. So on Amazon, this little bit here is also on the back. And it says that is by Page Street Publishing, premium binding, stays open and hands-free. And so I know some of you ordered this and you did not get the premium binding. I'm not sure if I ordered this through Bakara Wintner's website or through Amazon, but this is the one that you should be looking for with the premium binding. So let me know about that, because that was another question from last week. Okay. Just a second. I'm going to see if I can do something about the buffering. Hold on. Thank you for your patience. Chat amongst yourselves. 1 second here. I'm just going to deal with my family. Yes. So how are you guys, other than tarot and other than tarot books? I feel like I have not been on any chats this week, and I really am kind of missing it. All right. So let me know. Let me know if it's still buffering. I think that's a little bit better on my end right now. Okay. So let's get back to the books, because this is kind of fun and exciting. So in 10th place, I'm going to start in 10th place and just share with you some of the things. And I'm going to try not to go back and forth to the spreadsheet too much, because it's a lot to look at and to share with you. So in 10th place was the Mystic Fairy Tarot. This one by Barbara Moore. And this book actually scored 92 points, and the top 10 guidebooks all scored 92 or more. And then the 10 that were below that, then the 11th book was 84 points. So that was quite a difference in the top 10 and the ones below that. So let's go to the Mystic Fairy Tarot, and I'm going to share with you why it got such good points. I'm going to have to open this up wider. As I mentioned, there is a story that runs through this deck in the minors, and it really makes for a beautiful second half of through the minors. And sorry, I should have put these in order. This is a lot. I'm going to have to summarize. So anyway, this one was in 10th place. And this is one of the only Barbara Moore guidebooks I have that actually includes a biography about Barbara Moore. A lot of the ones that I have don't really say much about her. And the journey of the creation of this deck is really beautifully illustrated through the introduction. And one of the highlights of this book is that at the back, there is all kinds of references and keywords. And there's also, this is one of 4, I believe, that includes sample readings in the guidebook. So Barbara Moore actually shuffles and does a reading and goes through and takes her time in explaining in quite a bit of detail how she would interpret a reading. So that gave the bottom section full points. And as well as the card descriptions being fully expanded as far as the symbols in the cards, as well as the interpretation of the meanings. It scored really, really well. So that was my number 10. And I will come back and glance over the spreadsheet in a few moments. In number 9 place, and this was no surprise, was the Dreamkeepers Tarot. This book, much like, it kind of reminds me of the Crow Tarot in that way, and it has so many special sections. It does have an expanded court card section. It has substantial information about the author as well. And it has this beautiful expansion and summary of the keywords in the back of the book. And it just feels like the author is open to and deeply connected to the cards and comfortable with the interpretations. And I feel when I read the interpretations of the cards that she really understands what she has created. And I feel the experience and the number of years that it took to create the deck. So it's just absolutely a wonderful, wonderful guidebook. Okay, so that was number 9. I'm going to stack these in order in case I have to come back to them. In number 8 position, even though this is the one with no color pictures, no thumbnails, is the Gaian Tarot. And the reason, there's so many reasons that the Gaian Tarot is in the top 10, and that has to do with the details that are included in every single card. So Joanna goes into great detail when she talks about the symbols that are on each of the cards. And so here, for example, I'm looking at the 21st card, so the World card. And if you think about a deck like Poppy Palin's deck with that beautiful quilt and the description of the quilt and all the people around the quilt, that World card is coming to mind. But Joanna does it in such a way that for every single card, you really feel like you know what is going on, and the words, the descriptions are full, and you have so many lovely details throughout each of the card descriptions. Because she switches up the she switches up the court cards in this deck. And I think if a creator is going to switch things up, we need to know why they're switching them up. And she does this in this book. So it's an amazing, amazing reference. And I think in an ideal world, I would have the Schiffer Guidebook, because the Schiffer Guidebook is color coded on the side. So you see the sections. It has color pictures and beautiful, I believe, quite large images of each of the cards, as opposed to the Llewellyn that has nothing. But the Llewellyn cards are out of print, but they're really, really stunning. So yeah, so that was my number 8. Let's see what's going on here. Hi, Paula. Paula says, it seems as though Barbara shares different information each book, so it makes you want to read them. For sure she does. And in no 2 of her books have I felt that it's a copy of one before. I remember I was quite reluctant to give away my steampunk tarot, which was created with Ali Fell. And it was a beautiful card description and an understanding and interpretation of every single one of those cards, and gave this other layer and this other depth. So she's really quite incredible. Ange says that Llewellyn cards are hard to find. Yes, they're hard to find. I was really fortunate. I got mine on eBay for a fairly decent price. So I think you just have to keep your eyes open, because the Gaian is not a deck for everybody. Okay. So I'm going to carry on with what I'm doing, and then I'm going to go back and look at my spreadsheet, because there's some really interesting notes that I made. This is the next one. Surprise! Gabi Angus-West. I mentioned last week that it's almost shocking that she is not an experienced tarot reader, or wasn't at the time that this book was created. And if you don't have this book and you don't have this particular deck, it is very busy. It's inspired by tattoo art, but it has a real depth of understanding and a beautiful connection to each of the cards. And intuitively, probably through a long lineage of intuitive people, she probably, what do I want to say? Like some people don't give themselves enough credit for what they know and what they're connected with. And there are so many things about this book that makes it a really worthwhile read. So if this is a deck that you have put away because you didn't like the Schiffer cardstock, or, I still haven't trimmed this deck because I don't have a guillotine cutter. It's definitely worthwhile to pull out. She has some unique spreads at the back of this book, and some really interesting personal stories, cherry flavored truth bombs. With some of her beliefs. And this is one, not very many have this. She has an index at the back. I don't know, maybe this is, I really like it. So one of the things that I really like about this deck is the Suit of Wands. And in the Suit of Wands, the symbol is a pine cone. And she talks about the connection of the shape of the pine cone to the pineal gland. And the pineal gland being the connection to intuition and the awakening of the third eye. Well, she had me with that. that was just, I was just fascinated that she brought in that level and that layer. And that's just what I happened to look at here was the pine cone. But so it's a really, really good book. So maybe a book that you could use even, you know, if you weren't, you didn't love the cards. So that's number 7. The week that I did we were doing animal, I did a whole bunch of videos about court cards. And then one week I did animal court cards. And several of you added suggestions, and I purchased a couple more animal decks. And one of the ones is here. And I'm definitely going to do some feedback on the deck because I'm not entirely enamored with the deck. Some of the cards I absolutely love, not the entire deck. But this guidebook is definitely one of those. It's very similar in structure to the Shadowland in that you have, at the end of each card, you have journal prompts and you have space to write in the book. You can just tell by the thickness of it that it's a real hefty book. I want to share with you because with animal decks, the same with flower decks, for me, it's really important to have information about the animal medicine. So here she has the voice of the swan, as if the swan spoke, and then the card description starts. So this is the Lover's card. And you see this in a few books, right? So they did break down the interpretation into business and career, family and relationships, and so forth. And so that is really, it's really helpful. This is also, I believe, one of the books that has sample readings. And for an animal deck, I think that's important because it is, I'll go through and maybe I'll do that right now. To have that level of information with an animal deck or with a plant deck is, for me, it's really helpful. I don't like to have all my animal resources on the table when I'm working with a deck. If the guidebook is able to assist me through that, it's really, really beneficial. Ooh, and there's some more suggestions here. So I'm definitely going to read this chat back. Oh my goodness. So I'm just reading the pendulum comment. So I think it was about, so you have the book, but not the cards, or the cards are not the book. Have you done a chart of your house? So you kind of grid your house on a piece of paper. So this corner is the entryway. This is my bedroom. This is the kitchen, and so forth. And you hold the pendulum over each of the rooms. Is this the room where the deck is? Is this the room where the deck is? I find that is the quickest way to start rather than walking around the house. What did I lose? Oh my goodness. I think it was a bag of malas that I was taking to a workshop, or I brought back from a workshop. It was a very special mala that I was upset that I had lost. And my ego was telling me, I'm sure I've shared this story, that it must be in my bedroom closet because that's where I have like a case of all my sacred objects. But the pendulum kept telling me, no, it's not in your bedroom. Every time, it's not there. But I was determined it was there. And so I kept looking and going through everything in my bedroom. Anyway, the pendulum was right. It was in the main part of the room, and eventually it was found, and I just kicked myself. So sometimes we're not very good at listening to the message of the pendulum. So I wouldn't give up, Liz, if I were you. So Star Mantle, I'm not particularly attracted to that deck, but that's good to know that is a good guidebook. And I'm going to share with you a few of the others that people suggested. other people suggested. Okay. Yes, Kyle, you have the book for the Gaian and not the cards. Okay, Jen, are you driving somewhere? You have to race around the road to pick up your son. Okay. Yes, drive safely. No need to focus on YouTube while you're driving. Okay, so where are we at? So the next one, which is no surprise to me, is number 5, is the Robin Wood Tarot. And besides this symbolism that is described in detail for every single card, the journey of the deck is beautifully written about and illustrated. And I think the meat of this book is at the back. And she has chapters that include how does it work? She talks about how tarot works. She talks about her journey with beginning a reading and all of the rituals that she goes through in tremendous detail, word for word, which I mentioned you could record and then play back. She has a section on tarot ethics and spreads. She does qualify that to say that she wishes she had more space to do sample readings. And I believe somewhere in this book, she says she was going to do a second book, but I don't think she ever did. I've never been able to find it. And this has been a tremendous resource for me with many, many different books, not just using this with the Robin Wood Tarot. So it's definitely been an amazing book to have, and it's something that I do pull out from time to time when I'm prepping for videos or I'm stuck on a certain symbol or so forth, because I want to know what her Wiccan slant is on that. And then, so we have 4 more, and I know some of these I spoke to in detail last week. Number 4 is the Alice Tarot. The Alice Tarot does not include any information about Karen Mahoney. So there is no bio on her. We don't get any, even on her team, there's no real bio on her team. So it would be really nice if she had included that. And I think this book may have gone to number 1 if it had included a bio. I'm just going to look at the scores because I think, yeah, so the number 2 and the number 3 both got 98 points. For different reasons, they lost 2 points. So really the top 1, 2, 3, even the top 4 all have, so this is number 4. So number 4 is 97 points. Number 3 and 2 are 98 points. And number 1 is 100 points. So that was one of the little things that this book didn't include. There are sample readings in the Alice Tarot Guidebook. And it is this beautiful melding of both of the interpretations. So the interpretations from the story as well as the blending of the RWS interpretations. And it's just a beautiful read. And if you have other Alice decks and you didn't want to purchase this deck, the guidebooks are not so expensive. It might be worthwhile purchasing if you had any of the other Alice decks, because it's just full of delicious information. And I have not done a video comparing my Alice decks because it's really interesting to see why some of the decks have the same card for the same place in the major or minor arcana. And there's a lot of different choices in other cases. And that's if you're an Alice fan, that's a really fun thing to do as well too. There is one video on YouTube that compares 2 or 3 of them, actually. It's a lovely video, and she has teacups and tea. Oh, and she has such a lovely voice. I'm trying to think who it is. I will add it in the description box below. If I think about what video that is, I'll link it because it's really, really worthwhile watching. The Robinwood book is less than $15 on Amazon. That is amazing. Essence says, I never had a reaction so strong as I did with that deck. I didn't even have a chance to analyze the what or the why, and I generally am very analytical. Are we talking about Robinwood? No, we're not talking about. Let me know what deck you're talking about. Oh, and you're talking about Sacred Geometry above as well, too. Oh, in the Starman. Okay. Yes, I've seen that. It does have the Starman. So as far as Alice decks, I have only the Dame Darcy and this one. I do not have the little one. Do I have the little one in the tin? And the other one that Barbara Moore wrote the guidebook. I don't have that either, but I've looked at them in tremendous detail. So I just have the two. Yeah. Okay, so that was number 4. As I mentioned, number 3 and number 2. Is that right? Yeah, they have the same score. Same score. No surprise. No surprise. And for different reasons. So these have different strengths for sure. Jonathan asked me if I had the additional workbook for this one, which I do not. I eventually may very well get the workbook, but I think there is enough information in this to work with the deck beautifully. It's a bonus to have the guidebook. So this is number 2 and number 3, and they got exactly the same score. So yeah, they are absolutely amazing. And I'm going to share with you a couple of things that I really respect. One is that even though the creators of this deck have so much experience, they include all of these further references, which I find really interesting. This is also one of those books that has detailed sample readings. And so if you're looking for, and I'm sure that wouldn't be included in the little white book, and that is for the hexagram spread. So you get to walk through the deck with the creators of the deck and how they would interpret it. And that is just amazing. This Druidcraft also has an expanded section for the court cards, I believe. And it's just really beautifully written. The binding is amazing. This is also another book like the Robinwood that I use with other decks. I use this as a reference book. It's such a brilliant compilation of everything that I mentioned. Much like the Wildwood, it does go into also associations with seasons. And I had forgotten about this. It's been a long time since I looked at that page, and it would be interesting. And I don't think it is the same as the Wildwood. I think it is different. So they have wands the wands to swords shift is at summer solstice. Yeah, no, it's different. Anyway, I won't go into that detail, but it goes through the cycle of the seasons and the mystery of time in relation to the deck. And then this is a really beautiful expansion of the connection between the major and minor arcana and how that is represented through the symbol of the pentagram. So it's, if you only have the little white book for any of the Druidcraft, I so recommend getting the larger book. Yeah. And then in the Wildwood, it is quite different. But the bonus for the Wildwood, the bonus for me with this book is that you have the complete explanation for the choices in shifting the cards. So where it looks like the meaning is slightly different, it's completely explained, and it totally flows and makes sense with the energy of the deck. And the creators, you can tell the creators have put so much heart and soul into this deck. And the table of contents, I believe it's in the table of contents. Yeah, and you'll see this in a few guidebooks. I love this little bonus here. So in the table of contents, you've also got the keywords listed for each of the cards. You don't see that in too many. So this is what I was saying, was in some of the guidebooks that I looked at. So there was 23 actually. The table of contents just says introduction, major, minor, like it seriously just has like 4 or 5 checkpoints. And I find something like that is a really, really good reference page. And I totally appreciate that. And before I go back to the spreadsheet, this was number 1. And the reason this is number 1 is because it checked off every single one of the boxes. It has a biography. It has a bibliography. It's well indexed. It has journal prompts. It has, well, I'm going to show you on the spreadsheet. It had just so much going on in the guidebook. So a perfect template. This book is a perfect template for any guidebook reader because it really covers every single one of the criteria that I mentioned earlier in our chat tonight. Now, these are excellent guidebooks, but that doesn't necessarily mean the deck is, in my opinion. So remember that this is about the quality of the book and the content and how the book is written and all of that, because I may very well have different opinions about some of the cards. So I want to go back to the spreadsheet and share with you some of my notes because I spent a lot of time with this. And I just want you to see. Okay. So let's go left. Are we left? We're left. So you can see up here, this is the Dreamkeepers Tarot. And this was the first one that I did, and I hardly wrote anything down, but it scored really, really well. Here's the Llewellyn Tarot, which I absolutely love, and it only scored 70 points. I only gave it 50% for the card descriptions. And these are my notes. Majors include an elaborate description. Minors do not. There's little connection between the elaborate legends and the subsequent interpretations. So even with the majors and those beautiful legends that are there, there's no weaving between the legends and the meanings. It's actually quite choppy. And working with the deck, got 10 out of 15, which means I wasn't too impressed. Easy to navigate, and the credibility got 20 out of 20. So it means I've got double pluses here. We know a lot about Anna Maria's story and the building of the deck. It has a great bibliography and a great biography. So it got a lot of points for that part. Shadowscapes only scored 74, and where it fell behind was in pretty much every category. There was something that was not complete. Here, why did I say moon and page of wands? Oh, this is interesting. So in the Shadowscapes book, there's only quotes for a couple of the cards. There's not a quote on every single page. Barbara has amazing suggestions for working with the deck on page 1. A lot of people complained about the size of the images. So in the book, you do get full grayscale images. she talks a little, this is one of the ones that had no table of contents. There's a reference to numerology. So one of the things that I'm going to do is pull out all of my guidebooks that do have separate pages on the numerology. And I'm thinking I want to create a master chart because I'm actually quite surprised the range of associations with numbers in a lot of these guidebooks. No bibliography and no biography. So yeah. Here is the Shadowlands score. Did I make any notes here? There are sample readings with the Shadowscapes. So sample readings, if we go across, are in some in Shadowscapes. Alice Tarot, yes. Not many, hey? Mystic Faerie, yes. Wildwood, yes. Druidcraft, yes. That's it. So for those of you, there was 1 or 2 people that were looking for sample readings. Those are the ones that had sample readings. So that was for you. Okay, so here's Poppy Palin's deck. It scored 83 points. It got 50 out of 50 for the card descriptions, which is one of the reasons I think a lot of people love, love, love that guidebook. And the journal prompts are embedded within the text. So beautiful. And excellent expanded court card descriptions. Working with the deck, she does qualify this, and she says that because of space, maybe Schiffer gave her a limited number of pages, so she chose to put the energy into the content of the cards rather than other pages. I've got here under the navigability, well done with use of black pages to mark out sections. So I love it. I love it when content creators do that, and they either have black sections or colored indexes, you know, on the edge of the pages. And then the Alice Tarot I have spoken to. Incredible weaving of RWS, original story and further notes. What is beautiful? Oh yes, it's a beautiful production. And a triple plus. Oh yes. So here, how and why the Alice Tarot was created. So one of the beautiful things she shares is the creation of the costumes and the photographs and the staging of all of the cards. So that's, to me, is really interesting. The Robin Wood, love her personal interpretations and detailed descriptions of the unique spreads. So that is very, very helpful. And then let's just scan over here to see if I said anything else really interesting. The Marielle, which I talked to last week, has great use of charts. It got 48 out of 50 for the card descriptions. And it only got 50% on the credibility. So Mary White does not, and again, this is probably has to do with the limitation that was given to her by Schiffer on what she chose to include in the number of pages she was allowed to include in the guidebook. But just, you know, I'm trying to score these, you know, on with the same set of criteria. So there's minimal information about the actual how or the why it was created, but I know you can get that in various YouTube videos. The bibliography is really interesting and very minimal in the biography. The bibliography is excellent. The biography is minimal. Okay. All right, so Patrick Valenza. Let's fix that. Patrick Valenza. Deviant Moon, 84 points. Same score as the Marielle. And the reason that the Patrick Valenza, so that big tome, didn't score well is it has nothing about reading cards. And it I think it got 0 in that category. So if you look at this is the Patrick Valenza book, it got 50 out of 50 for the card descriptions. It got 0 for working with the deck. So that's a loss of 15 points. And 15 for excellent table of contents. And it got 19 points for the credibility. Look here. He does such a great job of letting us know the source of his photographs, which is amazing. Okay, and then Bonefire scored really well. I spoke to that. Mystic Faerie, I spoke to that. Oh, here's an interesting comment. Yes, but not particularly helpful. So there is an expanded court card section, but it doesn't really help. You know, kind of good to know. And again, Barbara did a great job with that, with giving suggestions on how to read. Oh, and in the Gaian, you get affirmations for every card. So some people really, really like that too. So that is a beautiful way, if you're doing a card a day, to have an affirmation for a card. And then Wildwood and Druidcraft scored really, really well. Here is the Pagan Tarot, which is a beautiful production we looked at last week. That purple book scored 84 points, 48 for the card descriptions. So as I expected, that was really good. Where it lost points is in the credibility. So that last section about the lack of resources, the lack of references. So let me know, if you think that's important or not. Do they need to state their sources, their resources, things like that? Crow Tarot, surprisingly, did not make the top 10. Why? Well, you can see it got 12, 12, 12. There is no bibliography. Very little information about the source of any of the collage information. Now, I mentioned this last week. She does talk a little bit about New York and what some of the scenes might be in the background. But the more I started to think about this, it would have been nice to find out a little bit more about the actual process of the collage. There is no biography about MJ. Of course, there's a little bit in the journey section. So that's the journey section there, the development of the card. And this is one of the nice features of the deck. So in the Crow Tarot we're talking about, she has pictorial summaries at the end of each of the chapters. So you have a summary for all of the cards with pictures of the cards. So that is a beautiful feature of the expanded Crow Tarot book. Antique Anatomy. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna go back, get rid of this spreadsheet. Antique Anatomy, I really, really glad I purchased the deck because I want to have it to read with Oracle of Oddities. And it's such a pretty book. It has so much extra information about different features of reading, but she doesn't go into the plant medicine. Again, there's no references to the plants. She doesn't name the plants. She doesn't name some of the obscure body parts. It's not listed at all in the description. And Claire Goodchild, I don't know if you ever are going to watch this video, and I'm probably going to do a review of the deck because I love the cards and I love Oracle of Oddities. And I would love for you to write a guidebook that talks a little bit about your journey with the plants and some of your choices of why you chose particular bones in relation to certain points, because inquiring minds want to know. So yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but it would be amazing to have more information in her guidebooks. I'm going to go back and look at some of these things here. You're talking about angels in the touchstone. Let's go back here. I'll have to, I don't know what angel deck you're talking about. I'll probably have to go back and read the chat. Okay. The new Angel Tarot looks excellent. And he did another one about demons. Ooh, do you mind popping into the chat who you're talking about? Oh, Travis McHenry. Okay, I will look for that name. The Occult Tarot. All right, so I'm going to switch to the list of other books, other companion books that people referenced and referred to multiple times. So those of you that watch Simon's Top 10 Tarot Companion Books, his number one book, I believe, was Phantasmagoria, which is the companion book to Tarot of the Vampires. And several people mentioned this book as well, too. And so that is not in my collection. I've never seen the book. The only negative comment I got about Phantasmagoria was that it's not very well indexed and it's hard to navigate through. So again, let me know what you think about that. Tarot of, oh, this was you, Kyle, suggested Tarot of Enchanted Dreams. Again, a deck that I don't have, but looks simply amazing. And maybe you can let us know what in particular you like about the Tarot of Enchanted Dreams guidebook, because I would be intrigued. It's a fairly new deck, came out in 2019. And Kyle also mentioned Emerging from Darkness, which is Robin Cole's new deck, which is sitting in my post office box in Blaine, Washington. I'm in Canada, so occasionally I drive down to my PO box there. So it's a journey to get to Vancouver and to my box, but it's so easy and I save so much on postage. And I haven't been there for a while because the border is closed. So that's one of the decks that's sitting in my box in Blaine. And I'm looking forward to that because Robin did an amazing job with the guidebook for the deck that I do have, which is the beautiful Rebellion Tarot. Forest of Enchantment, another deck that I don't have. The Star Tarot. Now, several people wrote about the Star Tarot, and I don't know if they're talking about the older version or the newer version of Star Tarot. On Amazon right now, the new version of Star Tarot is not available, and I don't know if they're going to do another printing of it, but unfortunately, I do have neither versions of the Star Tarot. Do any of you people work with the Star Tarot? Let me know, because it would be interesting to have a look at that because many people commented on that. The Medicine Woman Tarot, which is an older deck, I don't have, and that was had some beautiful feedback on. And also Tarot of the Spirit. And I'm not sure, I tried to look that one up and I was a little bit confused about which deck exactly that was. So yeah, so those are the ones that were mentioned most frequently, both in the poll that I posted, as well as in the chat and the comments. And I tried to look at all of the ones that people suggested, and I might just purchase a couple of them later in the summer. I've really done a lot of shopping during the quarantine time. So this was a really interesting process. And I didn't realize that, well, I guess I knew, but I didn't realize that a book could be amazing, but I don't really like the cards. And the opposite is true as well, too. Absolutely love the cards, but the book is crap. So in an ideal world, we have amazing cards and we have an amazing guidebook, because I love it. There's a few decks out there that I'm really looking forward to the emergence of the guidebook. One of them is the Philarcos Tarot. So Carmen Sorrenti is supposedly writing an extended guidebook to go with the Philarcos. And there also, I hear, is an extended guidebook to go with the Slow Tarot that is in creation. And whether these books actually come to pass or not, we will, we'll learn further down the road, but I definitely would purchase either of those books. Kyle, book of quotations, general descriptions, and also a question, a task, and an affirmation. Oh, that's Enchanted Dreams you're talking about. Oh, excellent. Okay, so it's a hefty book. All right. Tarot of the Spirit by Pamela Eakins and her daughter Joyce Eakins. Did I write that down? Because I made some notes on it. It was suggested by Soul Shines 8 and another. So I will definitely look that one up as well too. Because sometimes, it is indicative, it's for learning, right? It's for studying. And maybe even if you don't love the cards, there's ways to dive deeper into the tarot through connection with the guidebook, which maybe that's something that I didn't even consider in the past. So what I am planning on doing next week, and I've pulled out a few already, are those little white books that are actually quite incredible. And they don't have to be white. They can be brown. They can be blue, but they need to come with the cards within the box of cards, to fit into this criteria. They need to be, in the box. And probably it'll be really interesting. I will go through, I have a box of little white books. And so I can sit with a glass of wine or a few cups of tea and start to go through them. And one of the things I'm curious about, and I know there's one or two, even of the Lo Scarabeo multilingual books, that's actually quite excellent. So I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with that. So would you please let me know what your favorite little white, brown, or blue books are? And either write that in the comments below, or you can respond to the poll. I'll do a poll as well too. Unfortunately, with those polls on the community tab, you can only have 5 items. And I have no idea which 5 I'm going to pop up there at this point. If you have suggestions right now, let me know, because I'd be really, really curious about that. Let's see what's going on over here. Oh, Pamela has a YouTube channel. Good to know. "78 paintings in 6 years. Yes. Okay, so yeah, so how about little white books? Are there any little white books off the top of your head that you can go, yes, this should definitely be in consideration for next week? Please let me know. So maybe when you sign off tonight and you go and look through your box of little white books, let me know if there's 1 or 2 that you would like me to, to review or include or bring into consideration. 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot. I definitely will look at that. So yeah, so sorry about the buffering earlier. I know exactly why that was going on, and hopefully it got a little better as we went on in the evening. And I think that's about it. I think that's a wrap for tonight. So I want to wish you well. Enjoy the fine weather. I hope it is fine where you are, and happy belated summer solstice. And I hope to see more of you on YouTube this week than last week. Namaste.